It is 12:32 in Beaver Dam. You are listening to Community Comment. Here's our host, Kevin Haugen.
Well, thank you very much, and good afternoon. Welcome into today's Community Comment. Again, I'm your host, Kevin Haugen. It's my pleasure to welcome into our Daily Dodge TV studio our guest here on Community Comment today, the Chief of the Beaver Dam Fire Department, Michael Wesley, in studio today. Chief, thank you so much for giving up a few of your hours today to come in to chat with us. We always appreciate having you on Community Comment.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
If you have a question for the fire chief of the Beaver Dam Fire Department, you can call in at 885-4446, or you can text your questions into 887-9595. Again, the phone numbers are 885-4446, or you can text 887-9595 if you have a question for Beaver Dam Fire Chief Michael Wesley here on Community Comment today. We have a lot of important stuff to talk about here on the program today. Ice safety, look back at this last year, a lot of the big accomplishments that took place, upcoming food drive that we want to highlight as well. But Chief, the most important thing we want to get to today is a special announcement that's very close to you here. So I hand the mic over to you, Chief. What's that special announcement we want to make here at the Community Comment?
Yeah, very special announcement. So today is my son Harold's 9th birthday. So Harold, when you're listening to this later, happy birthday. I just had to take the opportunity and get that out there so everybody knows.
Fantastic. Is there any special plans? I know that thing during the week, it's tough to always do some celebrations and plan events. Is there something this past weekend that was held, or this coming weekend you got some special stuff planned for Harold?
Yeah, actually, Harold's a very big fan of the water parks. So we took him to Great Wolf Lodge last weekend. Fun. He got to bring a friend, so we spent the day there, had a good time, and I'm sure either tonight or in the next couple of nights we'll take him out to dinner wherever he chooses and open presents and have a good time.
Fantastic. So again, happy birthday. 9 years old again to Harold, Chief Wesley's son there. So again, happy birthday to him, and got some fun activities here this week, I'm sure. Did he get off today or did you send him into school? He still had to go into school?
He had to go into school. I was hoping to see him. We coincidentally had a fire alarm at his school today.
Really?
Nothing serious. Somebody pulled a fire alarm, but I was hoping to run into him, and I didn't get to see him, so maybe next time. All
right. Well, hopefully every time that you have to go to those schools, it's not a serious issue, but it's always kind of cool when you can see family members out and about in your job, which again, it's not always fun when you have to go out and respond and do these things. So we hope that anytime that the fire department's responding to an alarm at the school, it's not a serious issue. But again, our guest here on Community Comment today is the fire chief of the Beaver Dam Fire Department, Michael Wesley. I mentioned here at the top of the half hour of our program that we want to hit on a couple of important issues. One of them is a very timely one with the weather getting a lot colder. The lake is freezing over. More people will be venturing out, doing ice fishing, taking potentially their vehicles. I think this past weekend we saw a Facebook post near our area, I think Green Lake or up north from our area, of a vehicle on the lake with very thin ice, didn't make it very far, obviously fell through the water. And but there's some important things we want people to know when it comes to ice safety. And Chief, what is some of that information?
Yeah, so I mean, one thing that we always like to tell people is you need to remember that no ice is safe ice. Beaver Dam Lake, especially, you get in the area here, and it's not uncommon to have ice where you can drive a vehicle on, not too far away from either open water or thin ice. So if you actually go through our Facebook page, if you're ever interested, we do have a chart, that'll kind of tell you when you should be on the ice, what you can do on the ice, and so we like to say 2 inches or less, we'd like you to stay off. I know there's some very dedicated fishermen out there that as soon as they can get out there, they're out there. But try to be safe when you're doing it. Use good judgment. Fortunately, there's a lot of good tools out there, floating gear and stuff like that, where in the event that you do fall through, it's going to hold you up. So we always recommend taking those safety precautions, even on if you're going to be one of the guys that does go out on early ice. Life preserver, have the right things, have the right tools, and don't go by yourself.
Yeah, and maybe for somebody like me who doesn't do a lot of ice fishing, maybe this year I decided to do that, and I want to head out on the ice, and I'm not familiar about how to check for depth of ice. I see ice on the lake, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe this is thick enough to go out and venture out onto the lake. Is there ways for somebody who's not familiar with double checking these things? Maybe it's calling the fire department and say, hey, what's the depth? Is it safe to go out there right now? Or is there things you recommend for somebody who's not very familiar with knowing where the depth of the ice is on the lake right now?
Yeah, unfortunately, the only real way to tell is to obviously go out there, and somebody's always going to be the first. I have a father-in-law and a brother-in-law that are avid fishermen, and as soon as they can get out there, they're out there, and so those are the people you want to talk to. So you want to talk to the people that have experience on the body of water, friends, family, anything like that. Usually a bait shop is a great place to go. They'll tell you, hopefully, how thick the ice is, the conditions of it, and oftentimes, obviously, they might give you some tips and pointers about where to go. But those are the resources that I would use. Always, communicate with other people that you're going to go out there. But if you're looking for ice conditions, your radio station's probably a decent place to listen to. You guys have the reports on every week. So there's resources out there. There's some websites, too, where people share information. I don't really go on them anymore, but I know Lake Link used to be one. You could go on there and people would give ice reports. So there's definitely resources out there. Yeah,
I know that on Friday, the fishing reports with Wade Bates, it's a good place to check those. Wade reaches out to all local our fishermen and the bait shops here in the area and get the updates on where the ice is. So, yeah, again, that's a good opportunity that the Chief mentioned to find out where things are at and make sure that you're going out there when it's appropriate to, and that you're not risking your life and potentially the lives of others venturing out on ice that's not safe to do so. And when somebody does eventually, the ice is prepared and they can go out, is there any sort of safety equipment or things that people need to take out with them? Obviously, a lot of times when we go out on lakes, we think of life jackets sometimes, and people maybe don't think of that as a necessity when there's ice on the water. Is there important safety things and measures that the public should take when they're venturing out onto the ice?
Yeah, we talked about making sure that the ice is safe, so talk to people, make sure you know ice conditions. The other thing that you can do is communication. A big thing. In fact, yesterday we were out on the ice looking for a couple of ice fishermen because the communication wasn't there. But make sure that somebody knows where you're going, when you're going to be out there. Let them know when you get off the ice. Oftentimes we'll have fishermen that go out overnight. and family or friends or somebody knows they're out there, they don't hear from them, they get concerned, and then we have to go check on them. But it's no different than when you're summer fishing. It's always great to fish in pairs, communicate your plan, where you're going to be, when you're going to be back. That way, if something does happen, if there is an emergency, somebody can communicate that to us.
Yeah, and it's so important to let loved ones, again, as you mentioned, know if you're heading out on any body of water, or in this case now with the ice on the lake. Let people know what your plans are. Say, hey, I'm leaving at this time. My goal is to be back at this time. So resources don't have to be spent in a situation where there was that miscommunication. And the fire departments are busy enough as it is. So if we can avoid having them have to suit up and spend valuable time and resources for a situation that just if better communication was the reason behind it, then let's all try to do our best to make sure that we do those things and communicate where we're going and when we're going out onto the lake. And Chief, when it comes to when there is an incident and there is an emergency where somebody does fall through the ice and that requires that response, what does your department do to prepare and train for those situations? Because obviously it's not an easy rescue to undertake. What are some of the trainings that you guys have done to prepare for situations like this?
Yeah, so Beaver Dam Lake is unique in its size, and we cover almost the majority of it. So we'll go up and down the lake, whether it's ice or open water. And so we spend a lot of time, whether it's boat operations, hovercraft, working on ice rescues. We have something that's called a rapid deployment craft. So that's an inflatable craft that we can inflate. That works well on backwater, something where we don't have to go very far from shore.
Yeah.
So if something happens on a retention pond or something like that, that's a great resource. We're not going to throw a full-size boat in a small pond. But we train regularly on all of that, monthly basis. We're training on technical rescue stuff, so outside of the fire side of things. In fact, they're working on ice rescue stuff today. We have more training set up throughout the year, but we try to get out there, try to get everybody involved, and make sure that everybody's up up on ice rescue, water rescue, and all that. So we spend a significant amount of time with it, not just because of Beaver Dam Lake, but we're fortunate to have a lot of good resources that have been provided by the community. So. Does
the dive team at all play any roles in that training? And obviously, if something happens where people need to get into the water, does the dive team then play a role in that aspect? Yeah.
So any open water incident in Dodge County, if it happens down, we'll say in Hustisford, they're going to get dispatched to actually do the rescue, but at the same time, they're going to be dispatching our dive team. Hopefully it doesn't get that far where they're going to need us. But assembling the dive team, dispatching, and then actually putting our divers in the water takes a significant amount of time. It's not something that can be done in 5 minutes. Yeah. And so we get that resource rolling right away. There's a lot of different, as far as the dive team goes, there's a lot of different certifications and levels. For an ice incident, we are not going in the water. We do not have the experience, the training, or the capability to do that. If somebody does go under the ice, we're going to have to call in resources from Fond du Lac County or somewhere else that can provide that. But we currently do not have that. That's something we've talked about, but I think we're a ways off from actually making that happen.
Yeah. So. And if I correct me if I'm wrong, but the Beaver Dam Fire Department has the only dive team in Dodge County. So whenever there is that open body water rescues or calls that you had mentioned, it's those members of the dive team here in Beaver Dam that are suiting up and going out and responding to those calls. And that's an added workload onto your department. But it's important to have that resource, especially here in Beaver Dam. One of the biggest lakes here, right in our own backyard here. So having the resources here to be able to respond to those, I'm sure, is very important. And maybe as one or two follow-up questions here, just on ice safety. Say if somebody is out on the lake and they start hearing the cracks and things are starting to look a little dicey, what is your recommendation for them to do in that situation? Is it to race back? Is it to stay put? What is your recommendation as somebody who's seen a lot of these situations most likely take place? What's the best course of action for somebody to do if they find themselves in that spot?
My recommendation is if you're not comfortable where you are, then it's time to leave. Ice, anybody that does go ice fishing or spent any time out on the ice, you're going to know that ice is always moving, it's always cracking, it's always making noises. But if you don't feel comfortable or if you don't have the experience to be where you're at, that's probably a good sign that you probably shouldn't be where you're at. So a lot of it is common sense. I would say, again, we go back to making sure that the ice is safe and talking to the right people. Those are key things. But again, if you're in a situation that you feel is sketchy, you feel it's not comfortable, you probably shouldn't be there.
Yeah, it's one of those where doing your homework, doing your research before even stepping 1 foot out on the ice. It sounds like that's the best course of action to take. You never want to play with ice. In this case, with on the lake, it's could be a fatal, has been a fatal mistake for some, and certainly don't want to see that happen again. So important things and really good things to remember here from the chief of the Beaver Dam Fire Department, who's our guest here on Community Comment today. Again, Chief Michael Wesley here talking with us on Community Comment this afternoon. Also, want to spend a few moments here on our program today talking about 2024 and just some of the accomplishments looking back at this past year. Obviously, we're just a few weeks away from 2025. It's crazy how fast this last year has gone. But, Chief, what are some of the important things that we want to highlight and note from this past year?
So it probably doesn't come any surprise to you, Kevin. We constantly talk about this, but 2024 will be our busiest year to date. So last year was the first year that we eclipsed 3,000 calls as an organization, and we are well on our way to beating that. So it's been a busy year. In addition to that, last year at this time, I was happy to report to the Police and Fire Commission that we had also eclipsed 10,000 hours of training, which, again, I said we'd probably never meet. Well, here we are a year later, and I think we're going to also eclipse that. So that's a great accomplishment, and that's a testament to the community of how much our people care about what they do, and they want to make sure that they're doing a good job and they're ready in the event that we're needed. So those are two things that we're proud of. We're proud that we're able to answer all those calls and provide the services that are needed, and we're also very proud that we're able to get all that training in and be prepared for the calls.
Yeah, no. Another thing that we've talked quite extensively on, and is this something that Chief, that you can attribute to hitting these training hours? Is that new training tower that was put up here in Beaver Dam? I believe that was last summer when that was finally established and put together here out at the old DPW lot here in the city. How important has that been to be able to have something like that in your own backyard that you can dedicate man hours and people to be able to work in that building and train and learn valuable skills and tools and resources when you eventually go out onto an actual fire scene? But just how important has it been to have that facility to utilize and train in?
Yeah, so it's been a great addition to the department. We use it several times a week. So if you're ever driving by there, it's not uncommon to see the doors open and our firefighters practicing one skill or another. So it's been great. It helps us on a daily basis. The other thing that it's also allowed us to do is we've been able to host some trainings. So last year we were able to host a confined space rescue training. So we have a couple of our members that are part of what's called Wisconsin Task Force 1. That's an urban search and rescue organization from the state of Wisconsin that's made up by members of departments throughout Wisconsin. And we have a couple of members on that team. And so they were able to bring in, it's called the REACT Center. It's out of, I'm drawing a blank here, Volkfield, excuse me.
Okay, all right.
And so they're out of Volkfield, and they were able to not only bring the training in, but it was grant covered. So REACT actually covered the course of the class. Because we have that facility, we were able to host it. Had we not had it, we wouldn't have been able to bring the training to Beaver Dam, and I wouldn't have been able to send a dozen people somewhere else to take the training. So it's opened up some opportunities like that, and it's also increased our ability to do live fire training. So, for example, all of our new members who come in, they go through a live fire training in their initial training, and then they might not see another live fire until there's an actual fire. This gives us the ability to put them in that situation and make sure they're prepared to respond and they have some experience before that actually happens.
Yeah, you mentioned, too, just how busy this 2024 year has been, the amount of calls that your department has been responding to and reaching out to, and I'm sure a big part of that has been, being able to do those things is having the staff in place to be able to do that. And one position that you've been looking at trying to fill and have been able to do that is an important one, a fire inspector role. Chief, kind of just let us fill us in on how important it is to have a fire inspector and kind of what do they do in the fire department there.
Yeah, so the state of Wisconsin mandates that we do fire inspections. There's a couple different ways you can do it. Historically, what we've done is we've taken our firefighters that are working on shift, and they've been doing fire inspections. That's the way the Beaver Dam has done it for decades, which worked 25, 30 years ago when we were responding to 800 or 900 calls. But now we're responding to, like I said, close to 3,100 this year. We're upwards of 8 to 9 calls a day. Every time an ambulance goes out, people are out of service for a couple of hours. So it's been a struggle to get not just the fire inspections done, but then when we find violations, it's our responsibility to go back and make sure that they are corrected. So if we find blocked exits, we need to make sure those blocked exits are open. If we find other violations, it's got to be corrected. And so we just don't, at the current staffing levels, we don't have the capacity to do that. So this new fire inspector position, which hopefully we can fill sometime in April this year, is going to allow us to do that. It's going to allow us to be a little more in depth with our inspections to make sure we're not just getting everything done, but that we're properly following everything up. And it's important for the community because we need to go in, we need to make sure that all public buildings are safe for occupancy. And our fire inspectors do a good job of that. This is, again, going to allow us to go a little more in depth to make sure that we're getting everything done appropriately, to get everything corrected. And then it's going to give our inspectors a little bit of time to actually do a little education while they're there, too, to explain not only what has to be done, but why it has to be done. So we're very excited about having that opportunity, and definitely appreciative to council and the community for making that happen.
Yeah, is that application process, is that open right now, or you say that will be open at some point and hoping to have that filled in April, you mentioned?
Yeah, so I'm hoping to fill it with an internal candidate.
Okay.
If that doesn't happen, then we would hire somebody from outside the organization. So that's yet to be determined. We're working through all the pre-employment stuff, job descriptions, and getting that all taken care of right now. So.
And does that require any outside? Obviously, there's a specialty information that is required to know if a fire inspector is out catching all those important things that need to be corrected. So blocked exits, or if a establishment doesn't have working fire alarms, all those things are corrected. Is there special training that is involved with this role that they need to take every year to be able to stay up to date on current important information?
Yeah, so our fire inspectors are going to be a combination of a fire inspector, and they're still going to be a firefighter. So in the event there is an incident, we'll have another responder. Not everybody does it that way. There's some people that just have inspectors and that's it. But we feel that it's important that our inspectors have real world experience and a working knowledge of the other side once the fire actually starts, not just the prevention aspect. So the training that's involved in that is, in addition to being a firefighter and an EMT, they just need to take some courses to get certified as a fire inspector in the state of Wisconsin. Our fire inspector will also serve as a fire investigator. So there's a little bit of training that goes along with that. And both of those aspects, fire inspector and fire investigator, they're certifications. The state doesn't require that you do any additional continuing ed. We do. So the department is very committed to fire prevention, and we send people currently to training for fire prevention on an annual basis to make sure that they're staying up on new trends and new codes and everything like that. So,
with Michael Wesley here, the Beaver Dam Fire Department Chief, here on Community Comment today. Also want to spend 1 or 2 minutes highlighting it's not really a new hire, but kind of a new duty or new role that was essentially handed down by the state that needed to be filled. But this individual's been doing a lot of great things that you mentioned there at the fire department. Want to spend some time just highlighting their role and how important that is in your agency.
Yeah, so the state, I was telling Kevin beforehand, the state likes to give us a lot of requirements. They don't tell us necessarily how to do all of them or how we're going to pay for it, but that's neither here nor there. But they give us a lot of stuff to do. One thing that we have to have is, at the fire department, is we have to have a health and safety program. So the state says that we have to ensure that everybody is physically fit to do the job. They say that we have to have a program for fitting our face pieces, and for a lot of different things. As part of that program, we have to have a health and safety officer, and we have to have a health and safety committee. Our health and safety officer is firefighter paramedic Heather Shoemaker. She's been in that role for, I'd say, roughly 2 years, and she's done a lot of great things. She's brought some trainings in. She'll even, from time to time, do some exercise programs with the firefighters. She loves to make them do yoga. That's one of her things. I don't know if that's everybody's favorite, but she does a lot of great stuff. And so over the past year and a half or so, Heather's just done a bang-up job. She's brought in physicals, which are required by the state of Wisconsin. We have to ensure that our people are physically fit. So they're getting physicals on a regular basis, and then cancer screening. And that one's kind of interesting. Firefighters have a 9% higher cancer rate than the general public, and are 14% more likely to die from cancer than the general public. So the program she's set up actually gets that cancer screening in. We've had a lot of people go through the physicals already. Fortunately, we haven't discovered anything extremely serious, but it's discovered a few things that people didn't know were going on and had to follow up with their physicians. She's also started a mental health screening program, so our people now have the ability to work with EAP and meet on a regular basis with mental health professionals, which is something that is often overlooked in the fire service. And then she had a big project. We received some money from Reed Chrysler. They continually give donations that are unsolicited, and we're extremely grateful. But in the basement of the fire station is an old shooting range from the police department that is no longer being used. And so with a donation from Reed Chrysler, Heather got a project going, redid the entire basement, and now we have a very nice large gym in the basement. So another big project she worked on, but she's been doing a great job. There's actually several other things she's worked on, but we could probably spend an entire day talking about health and safety stuff, and maybe
it sounds like that's an opportunity to invite Heather here on Community if she's into this sort of environment to share this information. But yeah, it sounds like an opportunity to really dive into all those things, and yeah, it sounds like there could be a whole program in and of itself right there. But we just have a few minutes left in today's program here with our guest, Michael Wesley, the chief of the Beaver Dam Fire Department. With that time, we want to make sure we highlight an important community event taking place later this month that is for a good cause.
Yeah, so there's actually several components to this, but the department, our fire department, is a combination fire department. So we have full-time personnel and we have part-time personnel. And together there's a core group, and it's basically a firefighters association. Dues are paid, they work on some projects. Actually just made a $2,500 donation to the Beaver Dam Community Foundation to our trading and cadet fund, and so it's a great group to have on top of everything else that we do. But for the last 21 years, we've hosted the annual food drive, and so this year that's going to be Saturday, December 21st, from 9 to 1 p.m. That's going to be at Piggly Wiggly and Food Pride. I'm reading ahead here. But typically what we like to do, we bring some fire trucks out, everybody puts on their bunker gear, and as people walk in and walk out, we collect both monetary donations, and we'll collect non-perishables at both locations. Our goal this year, as it was last year, we have two pretty sizable trailers. We like to fill those up, try to get those filled up, and then raise around $4,000 that we can actually just donate straight to the food pantry and collect that for them. Last year, we filled up both those trailers, and I think we had $5,100, so that was great. But I think that you're probably aware, and hopefully our listeners are aware, that there is a need in the community, and the food pantry is doing a great job. They're actually expanding the building because of the need, and we want to be a part of helping fill that up. So if you guys are out and about on the 21st, we definitely appreciate you stopping by.
Fantastic. Again, that's on December 21st, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Fox Brothers Piggly Wiggly and Food Pride here in Beaver Dam. So if you have any non-perishables or monetary donations you have in this giving spirit that is Christmas this time of year, it's a great cause to support here coming up in just a few days away from today. But we're just about out of time here on Community Comment today. I want to thank our guest here on our program, the Beaver Dam Fire Department Chief, Michael Wesley. Chief, thank you again so much for coming in today.
Thanks for having me, and I just like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas.
Fantastic. I also want to wish Harold a happy 9th birthday.
Excellent. We'll get him again.
Perfect. And that will do it for today's Community Comment.